Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and this might have just become the best buy over an M3 and a C63 AMG. And today we're going to talk about all the reasons that might be, but thanks to our friends at Audi Milwaukee for letting us have a go so we can make this video. Let's get into it. The first thing is that it's just not quite as dynamic. The M car is going to feel, to me, more dynamic and sharper and more disciplined than this RS5. It'll feel more at home on the limit and on a racetrack. So if you're looking for the most aggressive thing, then go ahead and head over to your BMW dealer. But here's the thing. 2 years ago, I was driving around the track at Road America in the wet with a new M4, and I wasn't anywhere near the limit, and it wasn't even really that wet. And I still lost the rear around turn 3 and almost ended up in the grass. So the M car will bite you if you're not ready for that level or not expecting it. The RS5 is a bit more forgiving. You get Quattro all-wheel drive as standard. You get a little understeer on corner entry, so there's a little bit of safety built in. But I have to say, I drove this car in 2019 and the differences dynamically are larger than I thought they would be. The new car here that's been updated feels far less understeery, the chassis feels more neutral, and you can steer a little bit more with the back end and with power. Now, it's not going to fling itself sideways like you might get in the M car, but if you're thinking it's not fun, you're very wrong. It's fast, it sounds good, and there's good drama from the 8-speed gearbox. It's a better handler than it ever has been before, and the only reason I have to put this point on this side of the video is because relative to the M cars, it's just not quite as balls to the wall crazy. And I'm not even really interested in driving the C63 after my go in the C43 and based on what I've been reading. And this next thing just comes down to what it is on paper, and the BMW is just more powerful and faster. The RS5 gets the same 2.9 twin-turbo V6 we're familiar with, especially from our days in the Macan GTS. And from the factory here, it's pumping out 444 horsepower and 443 pound-feet. In comparison, the M3 in base form puts out 473 horsepower and 406 pound-feet, so more horsepower but less torque. An M3 competition will do 503 horsepower, and with xDrive it's getting to 60 in 3.4 seconds, which is realistically only a tenth or two quicker than the RS5 with its more torque down low and all-wheel drive grip. And the C63 is an outlier. It's making something like 670 horsepower and 750 pound-feet and does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds dead. So the M and the AMG are more powerful and they're quicker, but the C63 has a bit of a star next to it because obviously, and then the M3 is only marginally quicker at most. And this point isn't something I usually talk about because it's impossible to cover the entirety of the culture and everyone's experience differs a little bit, but there is something that I have noticed in my time around cars, and it's that BMW people in particular are incredibly dismissive of Audi's RS cars. Like, the RS5 does not get the respect I think it deserves because it's not as crazy or because it understeers a little bit or it's softer. But I guess the way that I look at it is the RS5 is more honest about what it is. These aren't race cars. These are luxury sports sedans, and most people, again, most people will never once put their $80,000, $90,000 performance luxury sedan thing on a racetrack. I know some people will, and that's great, good for you, but the majority of sales, and the data shows this, they're never tracking the car. And from that angle, the Audi is then just a better companion day to day. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but let's switch gears and talk about all the great parts of this car. The first and arguably the best thing is the price. This thing starts at about $78,000, and you add an extra $300 for the more practical sport back body style, which then makes it an easy choice. The competition for this RS3 starts at $93,800. Personally, I'll skip the competition. You don't get any more power. But the M3, in order to get all-wheel drive to be competitive to this, you need to get the competition, and that starts at $84,000 versus the $78,600 here. And then the C63, that thing starts at $95,000. Just don't with the AMG, I promise. And I know through the course of this video I've been painting this image, which I think is not exactly fair or totally representative. Like, it's not as crazy as the M car, it's not as fast as the AMG, it's softer, it's better daily. Like, all those things are true, but in those terms, it's marginally less crazy. It's marginally less fast. It's still plenty quick. At no point driving this thing have I ever thought like, oh, this is slow, I could use more power, or oh, I'm not getting enough drama or snap from the gearbox. The transmission is fantastic. This thing is still fun to drive. But the other side of that, and we've again talked about this in our RS7 video, it's that this calms itself down in a way that the M car just doesn't, and again, the AMG cars haven't historically, and it just becomes that luxury, compact sedan, whatever you want to call this thing. It just becomes more of an A5 than the M car becomes just a 3 Series. It's just more comfortable, it's easier to live with, it's not as loud or shouty, it's not as stiff, your chiropractor isn't going to hate this car. It's just better, it's a better partner to have in your garage if it's your only car. And then this is what Audi does so well. They introduce practicality to performance. This sportback body style means you get a huge cargo area with the liftback or hatchback, whatever you want to call it. You can't fold the rear seats from the trunk here, but they do fold 40-20-40. And this is just something that you don't get on the M or the AMG cars. It's the same thing as you move up in size too, for the RS7, for example, or the RS6 Avant. So better looking and more practical is kind of what I was talking about earlier when I said, this might be the one to get. And yes, the M3 4 twins are a bit more dynamic, they're faster, but they look like that. This Audi RS5 by comparison then is gorgeous. It got a facelift in 2022, which gets you new, more aggressive headlights, and your grille gets that split detail like we first saw in the R8. And then of course you get some minor lower fascia adjustments as well, and they've tucked the radar detectors cleverly into where the fog lights would be, so they're less noticeable. And your taillights have also been updated to kind of mirror the headlights. And this one is a gorgeous spec with the glacier white and the carbon optics package, and it's just awesome to look at in comparison to the M cars, and even the AMG is not great. And this we've touched on briefly here and there, but I just want to make sure that it's very clear, but you do get Quattro, you get all-wheel drive as standard here, which is something you have to pay a lot more for in the M car, and the AMG itself is a lot more, so you're paying a lot more. So especially here in Wisconsin, it's fantastic. You save yourself some money, you're gonna want all-wheel drive anyway, especially if it's your only car. Quattro, nice to have. And it wouldn't be an Audi video without talking about interior, build, materials, and fit and finish. But you do get some updates here from last year. You get a nice big center screen that's a little bit more tablet oriented. It's not the dual screen that we've seen in the RS6 and RS7, but it's still pretty nice. It's all touch, there's no more MMI wheel as of 2022, but you still get things like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, you get 360 cameras, you get the awesome virtual cockpit, and you just get exquisite materials, the dimpled leather, the high gloss carbon fiber, the red contrasted honeycomb stitching for the RS models, and you have the interior red stitching on your steering wheel. You get heated and massage optional seats, which was interesting that you can get massage but not cooled here. And you get a heated steering wheel, which shares a button with your RS modes. Usually I'll say the interior design on Audis is a little boring, but to be honest here, I like it more than the AMG and the M. And then in terms of the rear seats, this is where the Sportback version, the extra $300 that you're gonna spend over the coupe, is really gonna go a long way for you. I'm 6'1", and look, inches of knee room in front of me. I can even wear my hat in here without it rubbing against the ceiling. The space back here is decent and totally practical to have 6-footers back here. And all of the great materials and fit and finish from up front continues back here with exquisite leathers, great stitching, and of course some nice red detailing. And 45% of the materials here are recycled, which is just kind of cool. And of course you get heated seats back here, dual vents, 2 USBs, and a 12-volt. But one of the interesting things, aside from the recycled materials back here, is when you open this, your cup holders are individual per side rather than having both out at once. Completely unnecessary detail, but kind of nice. So that is the best and the rest of the Audi RS5, and I'm really glad that I revisited this car. I think it kind of falls off the radar from time to time, but I'm glad that I got to spend some time in it because it drives beautifully, it's a great driving partner, and it just blends seamlessly into your life with max practicality, stylish looks, and it's a lot of fun. It's better looking and more practical than the M twins, and the AMG shot itself in the face with the price, powertrain, and weight. So this RS5 then brings a near perfect package at a very reasonable price. So thanks again to our friends at Audi Milwaukee for making this video possible.